I'm Joe Zito. Yeah, I know this is strange because I'm talking to another Joe Zito, but I'm just Joe Zito. He's probably the real Slim Shady. But yeah, I'm Joe Zito. I'm a movie director and TV producer, and I'm talking to Joe Zito.
There's Tom Caldwell's Cadillac.
How do you do? Hey, who's he going out with now, anyway?
Linda Booth, do you believe it?
Linda Booth. I thought she was going out with Georgie Wise.
Didn't you hear?
I heard Georgie joined the Air Corps, all right, but wait a minute. Georgie didn't get it.
They broke up. Will you look at that?
Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Boys Podcast. Today, we're joined by the man who directed films like The Prowler, Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter, Missing in Action, Invasion USA, and Red Scorpion, and many, many more. The amazingly talented director, Mr. Joseph Zito. Welcome, Mr. Zito.
Oh, it's great to be here, Joe. It's a kind of strange thing. We both have the same name.
Yeah.
I'm Joe Zito and you're Joe Zito. It sounds like we're putting people on, but it's true.
Well, I have a couple of questions for you, Joe, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So, what are you doing during these times of quarantine?
Oh, it's miserable, like for everyone.
Yeah.
I hate it. I can't be making movies, because it's really hard to be in production now. And I also sometimes produce television. I can't be doing that. But and I like to travel in between, in between working on film and television. I like to travel to weird places, and I can't do that either. so it's tough. I'm in California now. I live in California. I have another place outside of the country, but I live in California, and so I'm touring the state, finding out how pretty it is. Driving around the Pacific Coast Highway, and waiting until the world is back.
Yeah. This is a crazy world right now we're in.
Crazy times. And new discoveries, though, because you get into doing other things. I mean, you just have to get into doing other things because, at least for me, I'm not able to do the stuff that I normally do. So, I go fishing. I haven't gone fishing since I was half your age. Stuff like that.
Yeah, see, my quarantine, I just graduated virtually high school. So that was different.
Yeah, that was different, right.
So I've been doing that, and then the start of quarantine, I've been doing these podcasts, like interviews. So yeah.
Yes, I've seen them.
So,
terrific.
Thank you. I love making them. So yeah. Okay. So what made you want to become a director, and who's your biggest inspiration for directing?
Well, I didn't even know I wanted to be a director, honestly. I just thought I had this feeling. It was very different when I was going to school, when I was in high school and when I was in college, because there weren't so many film schools like there are now. Like now, that lots of people go to film schools and they have ideas about what they want to do and they know, all the different job functions. I just had this feeling that I wanted to somehow make movies, and I didn't know if I wanted to be a director, a producer, a writer. I didn't want to be an actor. I hate being on camera, as maybe you can tell. I hate being on camera. I belong on the other side. But I just wanted to make film, and I was very dumb about it. Honestly, I was very stupid about it because I didn't know it was difficult to do. I mean, I didn't. The making film is not difficult. The getting into the industry is a little harder. So I didn't know people in the industry. My family was not in the industry. I actually, the closest to somebody in the industry I knew, there was a guy who lived around the corner from me, and he was a projectionist in a movie theater. That was my big contact in the industry. He was a projectionist. So, but he liked cameras, and he taught me a little bit about, a 16 millimeter camera. And I saved up, and I really didn't have enough money. I found a partner. I bought the camera, and he bought the lens, which was a great thing to do because when the partnership broke up, at least I had a camera. All he had was a lens. But and I started making little, artistic, pretentious, lousy films, and I wanted to make documentaries. Actually, my dream back then was to make documentary films. I never really got to do it because the way things work in life and in the business especially, and when an opportunity presents itself, you have to think quickly about whether or not you do it. And I had a chance to do a low budget feature early on at the beginning of my career, and I said yes, and I forgot all about documentaries and never went back. Actually, I still would like to do them, but I haven't gotten to do them. And that story is when I was 19 years old. So yeah. So yes, it wasn't so much like I was trying to follow a specific great director, although I was interested in film, and I'd go to movie theaters. And also back then I was living in New York, and New York had lots of movie theaters that specialized in artistic kind of films from Europe that would bring in Fellini films, Antonioni films, Jean-Luc Godard. These were the great filmmakers back then, and I'd like them and I'd go see them. But I can't say there's one of those guys that I tried to emulate. I was just inspired by the idea of movies.
Nice. That's why I want to do as a career, actually, become a director.
Really? Who Joe Zito's directing? I'll have to leave. I'll do something else.
That'd be cool.
I'll take over the podcast. I'll tell you what. Let's do this. You become the director, and I'll take over the podcast. How's that?
Sure. That'd be cool, though. Like, imagine that we both work on the same movie. It'd be like, are we reading something like two Joe Zitos?
That'd be the greatest thing. That'd be the greatest. Now, when I started, you never saw a shared director's credit. You only saw the producer and the director, one person. Now they have two people sharing director's credits. It's not uncommon. So if we directed something together, it would be, well, I take Joseph Zito on the screen. So if you don't mind, we can take Joseph Zito and Joseph Zito. Okay. But if you want, we can do Joe Zito and Joe Zito.
I don't mind. Either one works. We can do that.
Okay.
That'd be funny. People are like, are we reading this? Wow. Okay. So all of the projects you made, like films, TV shows, is there a favorite one you made or directed?
Well, it's hard for me to say. I don't have. You get very critical about your own work sometimes. Some people fall in love with everything they do. I don't. I think that's a good thing not to fall in love with everything you do. You need to be very critical about it. You can't edit it. If you like everything, you have to know what's not good and be able to throw it away. And then after you threw away all the not good stuff, you have to hope you still have a film because maybe everything was not good. But yeah, I don't have a favorite film. Sometimes when I speak to people who've seen my movies, they have favorites, and so I listen to what they liked about it. I have, rather than a film that I like, I have scenes that I like in some of my movies. Each movie there's something that I thought, this was a cool thing to try to do, and I don't know if I accomplished it, but at least I like watching that scene. But when I watch the whole movie, I see all the stuff that I don't like too, so it's much harder. Fans sometimes tell me that they like Missing in Action, and then there's a lot of horror fans that really like Friday the 13th Final Chapter. Some like The Prowler. I don't know. I get people write to me, so I see what they consider the favorite, and there's no consistent single favorite. I don't think. So I just hope to be able to watch them, and if they like them, great. That's the thing, Joe. You have to prepare yourself if you're going to be a film director or you're going to be in entertainment business at all. Once you put something out, everybody has a right to say whatever they feel like about it, and it's too bad if you don't like it. So, but it's important to listen to it. You learn from the way people see it, especially if it's different from what you thought. Because in making movies, the process is very strange. I mean, actually, Francois Truffaut spoke about this brilliantly, but I won't say it in a brilliant way. But I'll say something that is inspired by it. Maybe you start out with an idea of what the movie is, and you are trying to make that. You have things in your mind about what you're trying to do. Maybe you had some input in the script. Hopefully, I usually do, but sometimes directors don't have much input on the script. So you start out trying to make what you think the right movie is, or the movie for you that expresses what you want, or maybe it doesn't express what you like. You think it expresses what an audience wants to see, or a buyer wants to buy. There's a lot of different motivations in making movies. But once you start making it, it's bigger than you. You no longer start telling it what to do. It starts telling you what it wants to be. You know what I mean by that? The scenes have to become that way, and the financing and the actors' situations, it starts becoming something, and you really just try to keep up with it. You try to ride it, but it becomes this wild pony that has a will of its own. So you ride it the best you can, and by the time you get to the end, you're happy to have at least gotten to the end. Often you're not sure what you got, and the truth is, another director, said this again better than I'm saying it. But the stuff that you think is great and it's going to work the best often turns out not to. And the things that you think, oh, I screwed this up too bad, it's really bad. And those are the ones that the public likes. So it's kind of hard to tell, but I think you get a little better at it over time as you do more. But that's kind of what the process is like. So when you look at it, it's hard to find a single movie and say, well, that's the movie that defines. For me, it's hard. I don't know. Maybe other directors can do it. That's the movie that defines my life's work in film, and that's the thing I wish people would see. I'm happy if people see the movies, and if they can enjoy them, that's great. That's what makes me want to continue to make them. That's why I do continue to make them. And then I moved into also, not because the movies I did primarily as a movie director. Occasionally I produced them as well as directing, so producer and director. And then in recent years, I got into producing television and not directing, just producing television, bringing other directors in. And that was a really fascinating experience, So it's all great to do. I hope you get to do it because it's a really good life. It's a really good. It's full of all kinds of stress and miserable people that you meet, but it's wonderful also, and very wonderful.
That's cool. Yeah, I believe I also do as a hobby. I write scripts too.
Yeah, that's important. It's important to write. I also write, but mostly I work with the writers and rewrites a lot. So, but it's important to write because you get control of the material and you get to express yourself, better, I think.
Now, do you have a favorite scene in The Prowler and Friday the 13th final chapter?
Wow. Favorite scene in The Prowler. Well, I tell you what. Okay, I'll tell you what was the most fun to do. Okay. What was the most fun to do in The Prowler? Because The Prowler starts out. I mean, it's a low-budget movie. At the time, it's a low-budget movie. But we had enough money to do some special things. And so it starts out set in 1945. So and it was big scenes. It was this big graduation dance at this beautiful place with and we strung all white lights outside. and got these. There was a guy that we somehow got to know who owned a bunch of really cool period cars who just lent them. I mean, it was on loan. We just took them. We didn't pay for them. And we found old costumes in warehouses that had never been sold with the tag still on them from the 45. So we managed somehow to do a big production scene set in 1945. We were doing it, 35 years later, but set in 1945, a big production scene in period. And that was great fun to do. And at the end of that scene, there's a murder.
Yeah.
And it's these, I kind of liked it because they were wearing, fancy clothes for the dance, and the guy was wearing a white jacket, and they were awkwardly trying to make out. They were trying to kiss. And I maybe won't tell how the whole scene works, but I feel like I want to, but I won't tell how the whole scene works. But they get killed, and they both get killed during that wannabe romantic moment. And that's the end of the 1945 section. Then it goes to what was present day back then. So I like that sequence generally because it was fun to do, and it feels like it's sometime in the past. I like that. And then also the effects of the Prowler and Friday the 13th Final Chapter were done by Tom Savini. I brought Tom Savini. Tom Savini I invited to do the Prowler, and then brought him back to do Friday the 13th Final Chapter. And actually, it was difficult because the studio had somebody else they wanted to use, a very, very good special effects makeup person. And I fought for Tom, and I was able to win. And not that easy because that was going to be Friday the 13th Final Chapter was going to be a Paramount movie. So while it was what you call a negative pickup, Paramount takes it once you finish making it. Still, we knew Paramount was the distributor because they had distributed the other ones before. And prevailing and getting your way is not that easy. But the studio, I think, was wise, and they allowed Tom to do it. And Tom, I think, did a great job in both of those films. Actually, Tom did a few films for me. Tom did Savini. Savini did The Prowler. Savini did Friday the 13th Final Chapter. Savini also did a couple of effects in Red Scorpion.
Oh, wow.
He did a couple of effects. I brought him to Namibia. I know, and Savini hates to fly. Savini, you think he's a tough guy. He is terrified of airplanes. He hates to fly. So, but I said to him, Tom, I need you. You have to. So he did go out to Namibia, and he did a couple of really cool effects for Red Scorpion that were, I don't know how else I could have had them done. I mean, there's a scene in Red Scorpion that people always ask me about, and it's Dolph Lundgren, bare-chested, and he's being tortured by these long needles being threaded through his bare chest. And it's Dolph. You can see it's Dolph. Yeah. It's not a fake thing. You could see it's Dolph, and the needles go in and out again through his chest in a few places. And Tom figured out, what to do. And always when people ask me about, that scene, how did you do the scene with the needles in his chest? I always say, Dolph's a tough guy. We just stuck needles in his chest. But of course we didn't. Tom figured that out, and it's, I think it's really it's a good piece of work for Tom in that. So he worked in those 3 films, and I don't know, maybe another one or something. I don't know.
Did you have a favorite Friday the 13th Chapter scene? That movie?
Well, first of all, I haven't even seen all the Friday the 13th. I can only talk about mine and the ones before. Because after I make the film, I really don't like to watch the sequels that were made later. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but I just...
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't want to watch the ones that are done after. Whether they maintain something that I did or changed it, or I don't need to see them. Although I did see Friday the 13th Part 6, and I thought he did a really good job with that one also. But do I have a favorite scene in Friday the 13th?
Part 4. Your one.
Mine. Well, I think there's a scene that people like where Chris Crispin Glover does this crazy dance.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and everybody always says, "Oh, that's crazy. How did you do that?" I didn't do anything. Crispin was basically doing that crazy dance around town at clubs, and I heard about it. I heard he was doing this thing. So I asked him to do it, and he did. So I like watching that. But I like some of the things that we had Jason do.
Mhm.
Right, the guy who played Jason. Um, no, I like that Jason, you know, crashes through windows and splinters doors, and he did different things. And he also does something that he hadn't done in previous Friday the 13th. He, towards the end of Friday the 13th, I remember
Unmasked.
before that, at the end of Friday the 13th, he's going after, he's going after the girl, and it's raining, and he runs. It's the first time Jason ran, because before that he walked like the traditional zombie. Now all of a sudden he is a running zombie if he's a zombie. So I like to think, I mean, I know this is nonsense, but I like to think that I invented the running zombie. Because he didn't run before that, and zombies didn't run before that, as far as I know. So Jason ran, and in the rain. Yeah, I did a lot of strange things in Final Chapter that the studio, I'm sure, was not happy about that I did them. I had this idea because I got hired on the film before it was written. They had just seen the Prowler, and they said, "Okay, we're gonna ask you to do another film, a Friday the 13th film." So I had a lot of input in the script and that stuff, and of course with Tom on all the effects that we did. So I had some ideas when we were doing, and the studio hates this. I had this idea: why don't we set the thing at night? Well, it's a big deal to set it at night because you have to create darkness or shoot in darkness. The crew has to be working at night if you're shooting outdoors, or you have to create the look of darkness. It's always a big problem to set the movie almost entirely, not entirely, but almost entirely in the dark. And then I had this idea: it would be really cool if it rains, and setting a movie in the rain, you don't wait for rain, as you have to make it. And it means not only do you make the rain, but the actors are wet all the time. And they have to be wet down when they come inside the scenes to do the interiors. You have to wet their costumes down. And it was freezing when we were shooting it.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I know. It was like such a terrible thing. So it's set at night in the rain. And then I thought, it would be really cool if maybe we have a real kid in this, not just the usual Friday the 13th teenagers.
Like Corey.
A kid, an 11-year-old boy, and that's also another disaster because children can only work certain hours. You have a teacher, on the set. They have to, teach them certain hours. It messes up the schedule tremendously. And you're working with a child, which has all that other stuff you get. So Corey Feldman at the time was really an 11-year-old boy.
Wow.
And we cast him as Tommy. So now it has a child. It's at night. It's in the rain. I had two more ideas that they hated. I said, why doesn't he have a dog? So now you have to have a dog and a trainer because the dog is in the movie. And then I said, instead of just all these kids, why don't we how about twins? The girls. Twins. So then you have to find twins. And you have to find real twins. So it had a lot of things that made it difficult, but it made it fun for us to make, and I hope it makes it a little bit of fun for an audience, to watch. Yeah. So my favorite scenes in that, are when Jason appears in unexpected ways, breaks through glass. There's some theme that I have, Joe, that I don't know why I have this. Maybe you could figure it out, or if you become a director, you could really then figure it out. But the thing is, in my movies, I often break a television set. Now, this was before I became a television producer. Maybe I had bad feelings about TV, but I break a television set. So we break a television set on Jason's head.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that means there's all electronics on the actor's head and sparks, and it's the thing, it's a thing to do. So I break a television set. In Missing in Action, Chuck kicks a television set, and we shoot some television sets later in a shopping mall. In Invasion USA, we shoot them in a shopping mall. In Missing in Action, Chuck kicks one. I break television sets in almost all movies for some reason, and I don't start out thinking where we're going to break the television set. It just comes up. And the other thing I've done, repeating myself, copying myself, is something comes out of the water. Jason comes out of the water. Chuck comes out of the water with the gun, which does not follow Rambo. It was made before Rambo, by the way. Chuck comes out of the water with the gun and fires and Missing in Action. And some bad thing or good thing comes out of the water. What does this mean? I have no idea. But, those are the scenes I like. So I guess I forced them into movies because I like them. I'm not sure why I like them.
Did you like the Crispin Glover corkscrew kill and the Jason he slides down?
Yeah. That was my idea, to do the corkscrew. Where the hell is the corkscrew? And also the Crispin Glover corkscrew nailing him down. That's another thing I've done in other movies. In Invasion, I have a guy being nailed down with a knife. I keep copying myself. I've made only one movie in my life. I keep copying it, I think. But yeah, I thought the corkscrew was kind of fun. It was a moment of celebration, because he was successful with the girl in bed, and they're celebrating it. And he's asking for the corkscrew to open up this bottle of wine. And he gets the corkscrew and gets nailed to the corkscrew, and then gets a meat cleaver. Yeah. That was a long conversation with Crispin. Crispin is wonderful, and Crispin is nuts, as everybody knows. And Crispin is just wonderful, and he was really worried because he didn't want to scream. He wanted to die silently, and everybody always screams when they get stuck with something by Jason. So he just opened his mouth, and we did the effect. Again, Savini designed these, all of the effects. But it was something I wanted to do. The corkscrew was something that occurred to me, and I thought it'd be cool. Yeah. So, and I like that scene.
It's a cool, in my opinion.
Jason does something in Friday the 13th that he didn't do in other movies. He displays the bodies. He has a certain intelligence. He hangs the twin in. He hangs. He drops the twin at the doorstep. He throws Rob through the window into the place. He crucifies and hangs the Crispin character.
Yeah.
Okay. In the doorway. So he's showing the bodies, and he's also has kind of weird intelligence when Tommy fools him. In the end, I won't go into everything about that. But when Tommy does that, he's listening to what Tommy's saying. So it's a different Jason than existed before. And since I don't watch the other movies after, I can't say if he still does that stuff, But he did it then.
And then speaking of Tom Savini, like a fellow Paisan like us, fellow Italian Paisan.
Apparently he is. I know it's really different. It's so strange. I mean, it's hard for us to have a real connection to, like another country when we're born here and our parents are born here and we live and work here. When I've gone to Italy, I've gone there as a tourist, just like anybody else. But and I'm going to guess Tom Savini probably was never there. Well, I met another one, another Joseph Zito.
Wow.
There used to be a show business hotel in New York. There was a lot of people. De Niro, I think, had an apartment there. I met Frank. I met Joe Pesci there. I met Chris Walken there. A lot of actors would hang out at this hotel in New York on Central Park West. And I went there one time. I was casting Invasion, and I went there, and I was sitting at the bar. I wasn't casting at the time. I was sitting at the bar drinking at the time. I was sitting at the bar, and then I went to pay. So I paid with a credit card, I was going to leave. I paid with a credit card, and the bartender said, "Joseph Zito, meet Joseph Zito." And there was another guy sitting at the bar who was also named Joseph Zito. He was a psychiatrist in New York.
Oh my God.
So I met Joseph Zito. I was there casting. He was, I don't know what he was doing. So I met this other Joseph Zito in this crazy way.
Wow.
So now it's 3. There are others, but I haven't met him.
Well, there's also my dad. His name's Joseph Zito.
Okay.
And my great grandfather, he's Joseph Zito. So,
so there are, there are more, but yeah.
The more the merrier, right?
Yeah, we'll meet more.
Yeah. Okay. Over the years of your career, do you still keep in touch with like your co-stars, your fellow staff, your people like Tom Savini and all that?
Almost never. It's very strange and it surprises people, but
it happens.
You form a really, really close group, and lots of people talk about it, and sounds like goofy to talk about it, but this family-like thing. But actually, you really are, because especially with my movies. Okay, the Prowler and Friday the 13th Final Chapter, those are done in the United States. A lot of people are working in a place where they live maybe close to it or not too far. But my other movies are done in distant locations. Red Scorpion is done in Namibia, Southern Africa. Missing in Action is done in Asia. It's done in the Philippines. So I did a movie in Brazil. So you form this very, very tight group, and you're really close with the actors. And I use the same cameraman. I tend to use the same crew also. I bring the same crew back movie to movie. A lot of the same people, assistant directors and cinematographer, and all key people, production designer certainly. Try to bring the same person all the time, but I don't really have much communication with them away from I call them when we have a new film, and I say, "Come on, let's go again," and we do, and we're very close when we're working. But I know other people don't do this; they stay friendly with the whole gang. I don't. Same thing with the actors. I could be very friendly with the actors and even use them in a few movies, and never have anything to do with them in between. Lawrence Tierney was in 3 movies that I did.
Wow.
And he was like a very famous old time Hollywood actor, and then he's a crazy guy. He got in a lot of trouble every place, fights and things. But he had an Academy Award nomination. He was a big deal at one point. And then people were afraid of him because he got into a lot of fights and stuff, so they wouldn't use him. And he worked for me in 3 different movies. But I remember but he was dangerous. I mean, he was a big guy, and he could kill you with his bare hands if he wanted to. And sometimes you looked at him and he thought maybe he wants to. When I directed, I don't know, was it the Prowler? Maybe the Prowler. I don't know. One of the times I directed Tierney, and I knew he was very volatile. A guy. It was a rumor that he once threw a producer off a yacht. And,
oh my God!
Yeah, no. The guy did crazy stuff, but he was a terrific actor, and a lot of people didn't want to work with him. Tarantino finally worked with him, and it changed some things. But I used him 3 times, so I knew that he was dangerous. So I went to props, and I got a prop handgun, and stuck it in my belt. It didn't work. It was just a prop. I never mentioned it, but every time I talked to Tierney, he knew I had this weapon, like tucked in my belt. I never talked about it. He never talked about it, and he was really just very calm. It was perfect. But he actually was wonderful. He was wonderful. I tend to work with the same people, but never see them in between.
It happens. Just like I think, didn't you direct Chuck Norris in 2 films then? Yeah,
but I never saw. I didn't socialize with Chuck very much. I mean, one or two couple of things we got to do after between the 2 films. I went to his house for a party or something, and I ran into him in a bookstore. But we didn't hang out together. But we did two very important films together for him, because they'll actually Missing in Action, changed his career a lot. He says that all the time, that Missing in Action is probably the film that made him a star. So I won't go so far as to say that myself, but he was known on a completely different level. Because in my movies with Chuck, I didn't do much martial arts, and he was only a martial arts guy. He was known only for martial arts. He was not known for great dramatic performances. He was known for martial arts. And I thought, well, look, we can, many, many great actors in Hollywood in the past, their fame was based on personality, not so much based on dramatic performance. It was based on character they became. And I thought, well, we could take some of that martial arts away and just give him guns, and move him more into the general release category, not just the kung fu theaters that he was playing before. So we changed how he appeared to audiences, and introduced him to a lot of new audiences that were not interested in martial arts films, but were interested in action movies. So yeah, they were pop culture and they're comic books, but they introduced him to. All my stuff is pop culture. It's. I always find it funny when I read a critic who says, "Well, that's unrealistic. That's this." It wasn't supposed to be unrealistic. It's a comic book, But even though I've done films with the same actor a couple of times, 2 times, 3 times, no, I haven't spent time with him in between. In between movies and in between stuff, I rather travel to unusual places where. Then I'm in the movie myself. I go someplace where I can't understand it, just like the characters. Can't understand where they are. I use that theme a lot, where a character, Dolph Lundgren, is in Africa, but he doesn't know anything about Africa. He doesn't know how it works. Chuck is in Asia. What does he have to do with Asia? Nothing. I like the idea of sending a character to a world that they don't know and have them try to figure it out. And I do that in my personal life. When I'm not in production or pre-production, something like that, I try to travel to places where for sure I can't figure them out. I go to Kathmandu. I go to Tibet. I go to Bhutan. I go to India a lot, because you can never figure that stuff out as a foreigner. Ever. But it's interesting, and you feel like the character in the movie. It gives you good movie ideas too. You should try it.
I might. When the whole COVID's gone.
Right now, they don't let us anywhere.
Yeah.
You can't get in any place, so we have to just remember those things or imagine them.
Yeah. Okay. Who was the coolest person you've worked with?
Coolest? Coolest. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll define cool in different ways than I used to define cool. I don't know. I had a strange work experience with a guy who I think is terrific. I worked with Emmett Walsh. Emmett Walsh. He's just wonderful. I love the character actors. I love character actors. If you ask me which actors I want to work with, my answer is the great character actors more than the stars. And Emmett was just wonderful and a really helpful person, a really good guy. So I cast him in Missing in Action, and Emmett was doing a lot of movies, so we got him in Missing in Action, and he was very helpful counterpoint to Chuck Norris, in Missing in Action, and we got along great. It was wonderful. And then I cast him in Red Scorpion, and we didn't get along at all. He hated me. Wow. And because it's a different kind of production. It was a tougher production. It was longer. It was much bigger. The films got progressively larger in the independent business. This is before your time, really, but independent films were getting bigger and bigger, and they were spending a lot of money because they were competing very well with major films and even beating them in the box office. So when Missing in Action opened in the United States, it was #1 in the country, you know, and all the independent films were hitting #1 and #2, beating major films. So they got, cost more, and they got to spend a lot more on them. And as they got bigger, they got less personal. It wasn't just a few people going out making a movie. It was hundreds of people on the crew. We started out with 15 people trying to figure out how to make something. Next thing, there's a few hundred people on the crew, and you're in Africa, and the dynamic changes. So we didn't get along on that film, and I'm sorry about that, but that's a fact. So I still give Emmett the coolest because of the body of his work is so good, and he's a smart guy and fun to be around. When he's fun to be around, he's fun to be around.
That's cool. Okay.
It's a different definition of cool, but
Yeah. Okay. Since this is actually a question, what actor or actress would you love to work with? They haven't worked with yet.
Well, I guess I answered it already. I mean, they're just the great character actors, the ones you see and you say, yes, he's so good in that, and she's so wonderful in that. She nailed that. And they're not stars. They're not the stars. I don't have the stars that I think, gee, someday I would love to work with this guy or that woman. No, I don't have that. I mean, I start out thinking about story, not about the actor.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I try to figure out who can help tell that story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true if I get a story idea myself or I'm shown a script. I start to imagine it, and then you look for all these wonderful, these wonderful secondary actors that just bring these things to life. When I saw the original Blade Runner, okay, yes, I'm watching, of course, Harrison Ford, but I'm watching, Brian James, and I'm watching James Hong, and I'm watching, all these great, Olmos, and all these great, what you call secondary characters who are all brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually tried to work with almost all of those guys.
That's cool.
So yeah, that's because that gives you the feel of the movie. Yeah. Now, the studio has to worry about who the star is and, box office and whether they should spend the money on the film in the first place. And of course, every director has to think about that and worry about that too. But I think about the feeling, the tone of the film, and what it's going to be like to watch it. So the secondary actors are very, very important to that. Maybe not more important than the star, but certainly very, very important. And I think they've lost some, people have lost focus on that now, because now movies are more just that main actor.
Yeah.
And they don't care too much about everybody else, it seems. In some cases, not all cases. And I think that's not right. I think that's not fair to the viewer.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly not fair to the great actors, the secondary actors like that. I don't even want to call them secondary actors. To me, they're the movie. They're the movie.
Nice. Okay. If you never went in the filmmaking business, director, producer, what would your career be? And what other interests and hobbies do you have besides directing and producing?
This is going to sound totally nuts, but I think if I hadn't become a director or producer, I probably would have become a lawyer.
Oh, okay. I can see that.
And I don't know why that is, but a lot of my friends are attorneys. And when I've had occasion to use attorney, I don't sue people. I don't get sued. But, in show business, you have all this contract stuff.
Yeah.
And the attorneys have become my really best friends, and I spend a lot of time with them socially. You say, do I see the actors in between? No, I don't see the actors in between. I see the lawyers in between. And I know that sounds so weird, because it sounds so uncreative. But it interests me. The mechanics of it and the logic of it, interests me. Not so much deal making to try to cheat people and make the best deal for yourself, but just the way things get put together. In a way, it's kind of like making a movie. You have to build a movie brick by brick. And the law is like that sometimes, I think. The contracts that I'm not a lawyer, but you're working on a project and everyone has a contract. If you're a producer, you get to see a lot of them. and get to be involved in them. And I think that I would have been okay doing that. Although I will say this, every lawyer I ever met who's in show business has wanted not to be a lawyer. They all wanted to do this or something else. But I think that's probably what I would have done.
I could see that. I could see that because you look like you would be a good lawyer. I could see you as a teacher, maybe. Teacher.
Yeah, I never really, wanted to teach. Lots of my friends, who I mean, I'm still working, luckily, and but lots of my friends who stopped working towards the end of the independent era when a lot of films were being made, they went into teaching, and they love it. Teaching at the universities, teaching film at the universities. But I never thought about that and don't want to do it. So that means I'll probably end up doing it, right?
You never know.
You should never say you don't want to do something like that.
Do you have any hobbies or interests, like anything?
No, not really. Little things start to interest me, but really my most recent hobby, and it's been going on for many years now, is traveling the world and learning about different cultures. I'm extremely interested in different religions and different political systems and just the way people choose to live. It's so full of drama, so much more than you can get in one single movie. Because you're looking at, how all of these people exist and, the in all different levels and all different endeavors. It's really interesting to me. And I mean, if I weren't obsessed with production and movies and television, I'd just try to do that all the time if I could somehow.
Nice. Okay. Now, do you have a favorite band and type of music?
I'm very strange with music.
Okay.
I don't know. I go through periods. It's sort of like Picasso or something. You go through periods by color, and I'll go through a time that I'm only listening to rap music, and I go through a time that I'm only listening to old time jazz from the 30s and 40s. I'm doing a lot of that now, So I'm so I'm looking at the original stuff and the scratchy old recordings, listening to that. I used to love the really heavy metal stuff, and even still now, if I'm listening to, if I look at stuff that I play when I try to be a DJ to myself, there'll be the Rolling Stones and there'll be Janis Joplin, and then there'll be Robert Johnson playing, some old blues thing from the, from 40s, 30s. So, and then some hard, hip hop thing. So, yeah, I wouldn't want to pick just one, but then I think I should have said the other one or a different one or another one.
See, I actually got to meet my favorite band, like Queen, like Rio
Oh,
Chan.
sure.
I actually got to meet their guitarist and their drummer.
Oh, that's great.
I love 80s music. That's my favorite genre of music.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, as it relates to film, as it relates to being a film director, there are some directors are just wonderful with music. I mean, they really, really, really get it. Martin Scorsese is just, I mean, as brilliant as he is in film, he is so smart about music and what music to use and unusual kinds of choices. There are a few directors like that, and mostly it doesn't go together, but there are a few directors like that. And when they've got that going, they have both. It really is an asset because it helps their movies and it all makes sense, and it's not obvious. They choose things that really, really bring their stuff to life. It's quite different. Excuse me. For a film director working with composers, you are forced into the business of working in music, even though you are not a musician and not an expert. I've worked with the same composer on a lot of things too, Jay Chataway, who is wonderful. He's a guy who did much of the Star Trek television stuff. But he's done features, and he's done wonderful stuff for us, for me.
Wow.
I always say to him, Jay, listen, I want to show you this scene. I failed at it. I didn't get what I was trying to get. So now I rely on you to make it work because this is what I wanted it to do. So it has to be scarier, or it has to move faster, or it has to be more romantic, or whatever it is. You know, I don't need you in the stuff that I made work okay. Get out of the way of that. I need you where I failed. You gotta help me make it work. So, you know, you're always thinking of music in a strange way. Not so much for you to just enjoy it, but to be part of the visual.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
You know, to be joined to the visual. So now when I listen to music, you know, I don't have a visual image attached to it. So that's why I'm not grounded, and I like all different kinds of things. But if I have a scene that I know has to be a better action scene, it's easier to figure out what you want to, you know, to make that happen, or have you to have someone help you make that happen.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a favorite sport? You have favorite sports and favorite?
No, I hate sports. I don't watch anything.
You hate
I
sports?
don't get it. Yeah. I mean, I used to. A friend of mine used to have season tickets to the Dodgers.
Okay.
Here in Los Angeles, but he was also in show business. He was a distributor, a producer and a distributor. So he'd always say, hey, come on, let's go to the Dodger game. And we would go to the Dodger game, but we'd never even watch the field. We didn't know what the hell was going on anyway. We didn't know the players. We used to just talk about, you know, the business. So we would sit in we'd drive there, put up with the traffic, you know, eat the hot dogs, and then just talk about the business and have ideas for projects and things like that. So I went to a lot of Dodger games and don't know any of the players and what they do. You know, some people are really good at doing a lot of different things, and some people just try to figure out how to do one or two things. And I've tried to concentrate on, you know, entertainment business stuff.
See, I like hockey. That's my sport. I like hockey.
Yeah.
Sport. Okay. Hopefully, when things get back to normal, sooner rather than later. Do you have any projects in the works, or are there any projects in the works? Yeah,
I actually, I can't say that I have projects in the works, but I do want to direct features again. I'd like to do another scary movie. I'd like to do another horror film, and I have some ideas about that. But it's really hard to think about it too much now, because right now crews can't get together on sets, and they can't do so many things that you need to do. But I would really hope I can do another horror film. I think that's a priority for me.
Well, you know, Mr. Zito, believe it or not, I actually write horror scripts.
Well, there you are. So we may have our name. Now we're going to co-direct, and also you get the writer's credit. So
yeah, if you're that'd be cool. Wouldn't that be cool? You never know. When COVID's up now.
No, I really would like to do another horror film. I'm very serious about that.
Yeah, like maybe I could send you the script if you want.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. You never know. No. Imagine that becomes like a horror film of the year. You don't know.
Send it to me, sure.
Okay, awesome. Okay. Now, what advice would you give people who want to become like a director or producer? What advice would you give people?
Well, look, it's a difficult business to get into. A wonderful, wonderful, you know, life if you can do it and express yourself. You really need to think about who you're trying to communicate with. It's very important to figure out whether you just want to express something that's in you. And there's nothing wrong with any of these choices, by the way. In my opinion, you have to choose it, but you have to understand what you're choosing. You have something you want to say, and you want to say. You have to think, why do I want to speak to so many people? Because that's what film is. If you don't want to speak to a lot of people, just do a sketch or something. You know, write a poem and read it to yourself. You know, but if you want to speak to millions of people, that's what directing is. And you have to really try to get into your head and see why you want to do that. Is it to express something? Is it for ego? Or you have ideas about, you know, being a big shot or impressive, you know, and to people? Or is it something deep inside you? Is it personal? Are you wanting to do this for yourself, or are you wanting to do this for an audience? You want to make people laugh? You want to scare them? You know, you want to sit, because there's a wonderful, wonderful feeling to be in a movie theater and standing in the back of a movie theater, or sitting in the back of a movie theater and watching a whole audience respond to something you tried to do that maybe by accident works, you know, and if it really shows you the power of that kind of communication. And television is even stranger because many more people can watch at the same time, but you don't hear their applause and their screams or their laughter. So you have to think about what your objectives are and who you are in that picture. But you have to, if it's in you to want to do it, you have to really, really try. And it's not that easy now because so many people want to do it. But that doesn't matter. Now, it's not that easy in some ways. In some ways, it's much easier because everybody can make a movie with a cell phone if they feel like, and everybody can show what they want to say, and everybody could post something on, the platforms that let you show your work, So, and someone can see it. So it's easier in that sense, harder in the sense that everybody wants to do it.
I like that. I like that advice. Good advice.
I hope it's useful.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to promote and shout out?
No. I have nothing to sell. I come to you just to meet you, to find another Joe Zito and be happy to talk with you. And it's really great. Really, thanks for the opportunity.
Well, I thank you all so much for watching. Thank you again, Joe, or Mr. Zito, for being an awesome.
Yeah, Joe, like you.
Thank you for being an awesome guest. Have a great day, everybody, and stay awesome. And stay awesome, Joe.
New episodes of Du Bois Podcast return Sunday, January 3rd on JZ Productions 26.